Ted Bundy, a charming, terrifying killer who nearly took everything from Elizabeth Kloepfer. But he didn't. Why? What stopped him? Was it love? Or something far darker?
He was in my life every single day. I trusted him. But in the back of my mind, I always knew something wasn't right. I just didn't know how close I was to losing everything.
She survived? But why? Was it because he loved her? Or was it something darker? He buried kill kits in multiple states. No face, no pattern, no mercy. The scariest killer you've never heard of.
I thought I was safe. I thought I was untouchable, but I wasn't. None of us are.
You survived Bundy, but can you survive him? Before the world knew his name, before news anchors whispered it like a curse, Ted Bundy was just another face in the crowd. And Elizabeth Kendall was just a woman trying to feel whole again. It was 1969 in Seattle, the kind of city where the rain never really stops. And in one small apartment on a quiet street, a single mother sat by her window, watching the coffee in her cup go cold. Her name was Liz. She worked hard, kept her head down, did what she had to do to make it through the day. She was young, but tired. Kind, but cautious. Alone, but pretending not to be. She had a daughter who depended on her, a past she didn't talk about, and a heart that hadn't stopped aching in years. Then one night, he appeared. Not in some dramatic, cinematic way. No thunderclap, no spotlight. Just a man at a bar. Well-dressed, soft-spoken, with a smile that made people feel safe. He asked if she needed help getting to her car. She said yes. He didn't try anything, didn't push, didn't linger. He just helped. The next morning, he made breakfast. Not in a rush, not like he was trying to impress. He asked about her daughter. He listened when she spoke. And when she laughed, really laughed, it surprised even her. Weeks passed. Then months. And slowly, Ted became part of her world. Not all at once, not loudly, but in little ways. Quiet, consistent ways. He picked her up from work, brought her flowers, helped with the groceries. He read bedtime stories, took her daughter to the zoo, washed dishes without being asked. She started to believe again that maybe, just maybe, she could have something normal, something steady, something good, because that's what he was. Good, gentle, patient, kind. She called him her prince. And for a while, that's exactly what he was. But even fairy tales have shadows, and some smiles hide teeth. At first, it was nothing. A phone call he didn't want her to hear. A night he couldn't explain. A drawer he locked without ever saying why. She noticed. Of course she noticed. But she didn't press. Because people are allowed their secrets. Aren't they? Then came the lies. Small at first, then strange, then outright bizarre. There were moments, flickers, when the mask would slip. His eyes would go cold. His voice would change. He'd disappear for a day, then return with a new excuse. Always believable, always just enough. She told herself she was overthinking it. That stress was making her paranoid. That love means trusting, even when it's hard. But love, real love, doesn't come with shadows that move when you're not looking. It doesn't make your stomach twist when the phone rings. It doesn't come home with blood on its hands and call it car trouble. She tried to believe. She needed to believe, and because if he wasn't who he said he was, then what did that make her? A woman who invited a monster into her home? Into her daughter's life? Into her bed? She kept telling herself it couldn't be true. That the Ted on the news, the one they were calling a killer, that wasn't her Ted. He couldn't be. But deep down, in the quiet moments, when the house was still and the lights were off, she knew. She knew. And yet, she stayed. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world is a man who knows exactly what you need to hear. A man who can fake love so well, You start to forget what real love even feels like.
He was so normal. I kept telling myself, he can't be the man on the news. He just can't.
But he was. And for 6 long years, Elizabeth Kendall shared her life, her home, her heart, with a man the world would one day call a monster. She wasn't blind. She wasn't foolish. She was just human. And she isn't alone. Because the truth is, the signs were always there. But sometimes, the ones closest to evil are the last to see it. He was often gone at night. Study groups, he said. Always study groups. But they never ended before midnight. And sometimes, he wouldn't come back at all. Liz told herself not to worry. He was ambitious, dedicated, trying to build a future, maybe for them both. But it's hard to ignore an empty side of the bed. And even harder to ignore the way silence grows heavier. When someone you love starts to feel like a stranger. He'd walk through the door hours later, smiling, calm, holding 2 cups of coffee like nothing had happened. His hands warm, his excuses warmer. The car wouldn't start. He lost track of time. He'd left his phone in the library. Every story came with the perfect apology. Every lie wrapped in just enough truth to keep her holding on. But every time she forgave him, the pit in her stomach grew deeper. Like something inside her knew. Something was off. And then the city started to whisper. A girl was missing. Then another. And another. College students, young, pretty, all with long brown hair, parted down the middle. All last seen near the university district. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Unless you needed to ignore it. The news described a man in his 20s, clean-cut, polite, charming. He drove a brown Volkswagen Beetle, just like Ted's. Liz stared at the screen, frozen. Her breath caught in her throat. Could it be? Number? That was crazy. There were thousands of VW bugs in Seattle, and Ted was with her that night, wasn't he? But she started to notice things. Small things. Things she couldn't explain away anymore. A ski mask tucked under the seat. Handcuffs in the glove box. A crowbar in the trunk. She told herself it was nothing. Maybe camping gear. Maybe leftovers from his old security job. Maybe. But then came the drawer. The one she was never supposed to open. The one he always kept locked. One day he forgot. And inside, she found a bag. A second set of keys, rope, torn fabric, something that looked like a surgical glove. She held it all in her hands, and suddenly she couldn't breathe. She wasn't stupid. She was scared and in love. And those two things are hard to untangle. She called the police, gave them his name, more than once. She told them about the car, the drawer, the mask. Each time they listened. And each time they told her the same thing. He doesn't fit the profile. He's too clean, too smart, too polite. So she hung up, again and again, feeling like a fool. Because the man she loved, the one who made pancakes on Sundays and helped her daughter with math homework, he couldn't be a killer, could he? And yet, her daughter trusted him, called him daddy, held his hand in the grocery store. He brushed her hair in the morning, packed her lunch for school, tucked her in at night. He was good with children, so good, it made her skin crawl, because the mask was starting to slip. The charm, the calm voice, the warm smile. It was all too perfect, too practiced. Like something out of a script he'd rehearsed 100 times. Sometimes, late at night, Liz would wake up and just watch him sleep. Her hand resting inches from the phone. Heart pounding. Torn between love and survival. Because what do you do when your heart says stay, but your gut says run? How do you leave the man who made you feel seen? When the whole world refuses to see what he really is? She tried to warn them, tried to save someone, anyone, but no one listened. No one believed her. They believed him, and in doing so, They gave the devil more time, more nights, more victims, more silence, because sometimes the most terrifying monsters don't hide in the shadows. They sit at your dinner table. They hold your child. They kiss you goodnight, and you love them until the day you can't. She tried to save them, but no one believed her. Nitin Fire, Seattle. The rain hadn't stopped in days, and neither had Elizabeth's fear. Her voice cracked when she said it, not because she was uncertain, but because part of her still hoped she was wrong. I think my boyfriend might be the man you're looking for. They filed it, marked it, no action taken, just another worried woman, just another tip in a growing pile of shadows. You see, Ted wasn't lurking in alleyways. He wasn't a monster in a mask. He was smiling in yearbook photos. He was shaking hands with cops and comforting strangers who wanted to end their lives, while secretly ending the lives of others. Then came the killings in Utah and Colorado and Idaho. Different states, same pattern, a traveling ghost following interstates, leaving behind silence and sorrow and bones. Narrator. And while search dogs combed forests, he was brushing Elizabeth's daughter's hair. He was stirring sugar into her tea. Where do you go when you disappear? Why do I keep finding things that make no sense? You always do this. You always imagine things. He flipped the script, turned her worry into paranoia, her instincts into guilt. And so she began hiding her fear, the way other women were being hidden in the ground. She told them his name 3 times. Each time they shrugged. Too polite, they said. Doesn't fit the profile. He wasn't a monster to them. He was a law student, a political volunteer, a future someone. But eventually, the mask cracked. Sketches began to resemble the man she kissed goodnight. She wanted to scream, but all she could do was lock the door, as if that could keep the evil out, when it was already inside her home. Everything pointed to him, and still, no one listened. He wasn't just deceiving her. He was wearing her down, dismantling her trust, until she couldn't tell if she was living with a liar or losing her mind. By the time the world began to whisper his name, she had already screamed it into every phone she could find. She was the first to know, the first to report him, but no one listened, and the bodies kept coming. Midnight. The kind of midnight where time slows and silence becomes its own kind of scream. She woke without knowing why. No footsteps, no voices, just that hollow kind of stillness that fills the lungs with dread. And in that dark, he was already there. He wasn't holding anything. He wasn't doing anything. He was just watching her. She didn't scream. She didn't speak. She just watched back. Too afraid to move. Too afraid to ask why. I thought, in that moment, if I moved, I'd die. It wasn't Ted standing there. It was something else. Something hollow. Every creak in the floorboard was a countdown. Every breath she took felt borrowed. He stood inches from her face and didn't touch her, didn't speak, didn't kill. And just like that, he was gone. She stayed like that until sunrise, too afraid to move, too alive to sleep. The next morning, he was Ted again, charming, thoughtful, pretending like nothing happened. But something had changed. She didn't know what had stopped him, only that something had, and that maybe it wouldn't next time. And then, finally, Utah. A broken taillight, a stolen moment. They caught him. She thought she'd feel relief, but instead, she felt everything: terror, rage, shame, and guilt. Because part of her still missed the man she thought he was. She testified, voice shaking.
Eyes locked with the man who once whispered, "I love you," and then stared at her like prey. There were moments I thought I could fix him. I thought love could cure the darkness. I was wrong. He never loved me. He loved what I gave him. A mask, a cover, a place to disappear. He was the devil in disguise, and for years she made him dinner, laughed at his jokes, slept beside him, unknowingly helping the world's most charming predator disappear in plain sight.
But one night, he stood over her and chose not to kill. And that question still haunts her. Why didn't Ted Bundy kill her? The answer was simple, and yet it meant everything. He didn't see her as a person. He saw her as a mirror. She reflected the version of himself he needed to fake. He didn't spare her out of mercy. He spared her because she served a purpose. Ted Bundy had a dual identity. One side was meticulously crafted. The other, pure predator. Elizabeth helped protect the illusion.
I was his mask, his camouflage. That's why I lived.
He inserted himself into her life so deeply. She didn't just love him. She depended on him, and that dependency was his true weapon. BTK's wife waving from her porch. Israel Key's partner laughing at a dinner table. Golden State Killer's neighbors at a barbecue. Narrator foreshadowing. Bundy wasn't the only one. The worst killers don't hide in the shadows. They stand in the light. They go to work. They kiss their partners. And sometimes, they leave one alive. I never saw anything. Nothing strange. He was just normal.
There were moments I thought I was going crazy, but he always made me feel like I was safe, like I was the only one who really knew him. What if the killers you fear aren't strangers? What if they're already in your home?
She didn't survive because she was lucky. She survived because she served a purpose. She rebuilt her life. She raised her daughter. She moved on. But in the quiet moments, the question still lingers.
Did he love me? Or was I just his cover story?
Some say she was lucky. Others say she was smart. But maybe she was just chosen. Chosen to watch what the rest of us never saw. Ted Bundy taught us that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they wear sweaters. Sometimes they hold your hand. Sometimes they let you live. But what if the next one didn't want to be seen at all? No charm, no disguise, just darkness. He didn't want you to love him. He wanted you to vanish without a trace. He buried kill kits in 11 states. He had no type, no face, no pattern. The FBI said he was the scariest killer we've ever seen. You survived Bundy. But can you survive him?